Grand Rising, Hotep family. What city are you tuning in from? For those of you that don't know, we say Grand Rising around here because we want to wake you up on all levels of awareness, right? Hotep means unshakable inner peace. When we say race first, we say that meaning thought and behavior that places the political, social, economic interests, as well as the spiritual well-being and overall material survival for the Black race first to facilitate African sovereignty. Tell us what city you're tuning in from, whatever you learned from Blueprint for Black Power. What other books would you like us to read? What other books would you like me to buy so that I can read? Or what other topics are going on that I may not even be aware of? Or what are things that I haven't pointed out that you have connected from listening or reading Blueprint for Black Power? I appreciate any of you being here. I don't care if it's today, 5 years from today. I appreciate you taking out a moment of your time to read this book that this great ancestor, Dr. Amos Wilson, laid down for us, him and his cohorts. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and post to my other social media accounts. And let's jump on in to part 14, which will be chapter 5, I believe, chapter 6, Power and Personality. Yeah. What up with you? Okay, there we go. Yep, one moment. If you're tuning in, just tell me what city you're tuning in from, whatever you learned from Blueprint for Black Power. What topics would you like us to discuss in the future? Maybe even people to interview. Books that you would like to read that we haven't read yet, or books that I have read that you want me to bring back so that we can go back over them. All right, getting better at this, y'all. Getting better. It's taking a second, but still getting better. Yeah. So, if you're just joining in, Hotep family, Grand Rising, share, like, subscribe. If you check the description, I believe that there are some resources there you can take advantage of if you haven't already. If so, congratulations. And I'll be changing some of those as I get into something. I just found something that's actually very beautiful. I found a black bank that we can put our money in. So I'm actually this week, one of my main goals is to acquire that account and hand you guys the link so that you can also have an account so that I can be a product of the things that I'm saying that are solutions, not just telling you these things. I'm doing them and leading by action, right? So yeah, I definitely appreciate you joining me. We're definitely about to get right into it, so let's do it. Just waiting for this one page to load, and I'll get right to it. Yeah, 8:27. I don't think we won't be past 9 o'clock. All right, let's see if they're gonna let us live. Yes, they will. All righty. Chapter 6, Power and Personality. We have previously intimated that the power generated and expressed by a particular group reflects in good parts its social structure and organization. To a marked degree, a group regulates its own and its members' actions, which are expressions and instruments of its powers, under the influence and guidance of its collective norms and standards. We have indicated that Organized groups tend to generate and express their power in terms of divisions of labor and function, wherein social roles and responsibilities, positions of authority and execution are systematically and interactively delineated as means of achieving collective and individual goals. Generally, the social power of a group reflects the appropriateness and efficiency of its organization. However, we must be careful in our discussion of the power of which groups are capable of generating and expressing, not to make their organization the be all and end all of their power. For maximizing power, a group's form or organization may be necessary without, at the same time, being sufficient. Because on a more fundamental level, the power of a group is heavily dependent upon the abilities and characteristics, in short, the personalities of its individual members who constitute it and perform its organizational roles and functions. James Coleman very aptly describes the impact of the characteristics of group members on non-group effectiveness. Pardon me. I thought I had that pause. Let me get that going. What is that? Not at all. Let's do it like that. My apologies. Nice. All right. So where was I? Let me read the last few parts just in case. For maximizing power, a group's form or organization may be necessary without, at the same time, being sufficient. I feel like this is up. I feel like that's up. For maximizing power, a group's form or organization may be necessary without at the same time being sufficient. Because on a more fundamental level, the power of a group is heavily dependent on the abilities and characteristics, in short, the personalities of its individual members who constitute and perform its organizational roles and functions. James Coleman very aptly describes the impact of the characteristics of group members on group effectiveness. And this is how he describes it. A group's effectiveness depends heavily upon the individuals within it, since ultimately it is individuals who actually make and implement group decisions. Members with serious personality weaknesses or lack of essential skills may disrupt or prevent group progress, just as mature, competent, and dedicated members help to ensure group effectiveness and success. Characteristics of members, especially in terms of the possession of essential competencies and commitment to group goals, are especially important when a group is under severe stress. A group's loss of dedicated and capable members, particularly those with outstanding leadership skill or other key abilities needed by the group, can be seriously disruptive to group performance and effectiveness. We may infer from Coleman's exposition that a group's power potential or actuality may be remarkably enhanced or gravely weakened by enhancing or impairing the abilities and characteristics of its individual members. Where the personal qualifications and qualities of its individual members are too scarce or inadequate, where they may suffer conflicting needs, which pull them in opposing directions, where their emotional conflicts and tensions cause debilitating irritations among them, leading to their inability to objectively consider their problems, as well as distracting their attention from the task at hand, the group may fail to achieve its goals or may reach inadequate or unsatisfactory resolutions for its problems. In sum, the personality characteristics of a group's membership or the overall general personality orientations of the members of a group heavily influence that group's ability to solve problems. To a measurable degree, the power of a group reflects the power of the personalities of its members. Personality differences is the division of labor. In an interesting sense, the personalities which together compose the membership of a group, a society, or a culture provide for a somewhat natural division of labor or function within it. For within limits, individual differences in personality among the members of a group, society, or culture function together to enhance the group's survivability and to serve to maintain its adaptability. Personality differences within a group provide a pool of alternative ideas and behaviors with respect to customary and routinized ideas and behaviors, which, if appropriately utilized, increase the probability of the group's adapting effectively to changing conditions by making needed changes within its own structure and functioning. Personality differences within a group increase the probability that some of the persons that some person or persons within it may recognize and make other members of the group aware of changing or new conditions, propose new modes of behavior, and motivate other group members to make the necessary changes for effectively dealing. I just want to read that again. For effectively dealing with changed or new circumstances. Personality differences within a group increase the probability that some person or persons within it may recognize and make other members of the group aware of changing or new conditions, propose new modes of behavior, and motivate the group members to make the necessary changes for effectively dealing with changed or new circumstances. Since the personalities that compose a group are key sources of its power, are themselves sources of power, it behooves us in discussing the basis of social power to examine personality as a unit and instrument of the social power of a group, society, or culture. We will begin by posting a working definition of personality and proceed to look at personality as an instrumentality of social power. Personality as an instrument of social power. We shall define personality without claims of definity as more or less enduring, psychophysically organized ways of thinking, feeling, desiring, and behaving as they are assumed to be partly determined by an individual's fairly consistent or characteristical attitudes, values, perceptions, motives, and other abilities, all of which may be said to uniquely describe him or her as a person. It is important to note in this context, the personality is generally perceived as organized as a dynamic organization of traits, tendencies, abilities, intentions, and behavior. The behavior elicited from an individual in response to internal and or external stimuli is an expression of his personality organization. Under normal circumstances, human behavior is coordinated, not random, and is initiated and mediated by the organized functioning of an organized brain and body, a coordinated system of organs, themselves composed of cellular subunits and homeostatically regulated substances and activities. All of this is to say that the powers expressed by the individual as a person and personality emanate in an organized psychological system known as his body. Hence, even at the individual level, at the level of the individual personality organization as defined by its many structurally and functionally related levels and complexities, is the base or source of power, of the ability of the individual to solve problems in the world. This implies that the contents of personality, its abilities, tendencies, interests, tastes, and the nature of their dynamic organization largely determine the power of the person, and in the context of our current discussion, the contribution, for better or worse, he or she can make to his or her group, society, and or culture. We reiterate an earlier statement to the effect that one major way of controlling the power of a group is to control the contents, abilities, tendencies, interests, and taste, and their collective organizational expression in its constituent members. There is a general tendency among Eurocentric psychologists to overemphasize the uniqueness or utter differentness of individual personalities. This is perhaps to be expected in a culture whose guiding ideology is that of rugged individualism, or which idealizes almost unbridled individual freedom, and one which is horrified by almost any form of collectivism, cooperativism, socialism, or communalism. However, as we remarked earlier, one of the most remarkable things about individuals is their inveterate tendency to form groups. The gregariousness of humans, as well as many other animals, has fascinated behavioralists, philosophers, and pundits across the ages. What is most remarkable about individuals who form distinct groups is their exceedingly high level of conformity and obedience to customary values, expectations, and legal standards. Even more remarkable is their sameness or similarity of interest and taste, their apparent love of or need to eat much of the same foods and drinks prepared in much of the same ways, to be entertained by much of the same amusement, to dress pretty much alike, speak the same language, express similar attitudes, like the same kinds of music, and behave pretty much within a rather narrow range of a very broad spectrum of behavioral possibilities. Perhaps this is not as remarkable as it seems at first when we recognize the fact that an effectively functional group must maintain some necessary measure of conformity and unanimity. You know what I'm saying? UNANIMITY. Unanimity if it is to achieve its goals in a planned and coordinated manner. In fact, overlapping personality tendencies and tastes, which characterize the differing personalities of the individuals who constitute a group, provide that group with its necessary degree of conformity. Their non-overlapping tendencies and tastes provided with its necessary degree of flexibility, both together being necessary for maximizing its adaptability to changing circumstances. Conformity and y'all know what word it is, unanimity and service essential to coordinated group functioning and effectiveness serve a basic need to the group of self-preservation and therefore must operationally develop in any organized group. Consequently, in spite of individual differences, organized groups tend to exert some initial and ongoing pressure on their members towards conformity in vital areas of group life. Groups seek to induce conformity in their members through role definitions, setting limits to permissible behavior, convincing them of the validity of group goals and values, conditioning them through the manipulation of a broad variety of rewards and punishments. Moreover, a large proportion of basic and acquired individual needs can best only be satisfied through group activity and institutions. The individual is attracted to the group in terms of his or her and its commonality of interests, values, and goals. The success and status of the group, its exclusivity, its ability to provide him or her security and anxiety reduction, and to relieve him or her of his or her loneliness and alienation, among other things. More profoundly, the dynamically organized contents, abilities, tendencies, interests, and tastes which uniquely characterize the individual are derived in large part from social systems and culture through socialization, the development and ongoing interactions and experiences the individual has had with the social environment. To paraphrase Parsons in reference to how a child develops an attachment to its mother and has its budding personality organized to some significant degree thereby, the organization of the emerging and ongoing personality and motivational system of the individual are functions, not simply of his own independently given needs, but of the way in which his socio-cultural group responds to these needs, which themselves have been organized. In reference to the infant and the shaping of personality, Parsons contends that the infant in the first few weeks, if not days of life, comes to be integrated into a social system. And we may add that through the internalization of its symbols, the social system is integrated into the personality of the individual. Parsons goes on to contend that the internalization of the socio-cultural environment brought on by the social relations which the individual has experienced in the course of his life history provides the basis not merely of one specialized component of the human personality, but of what in the human sense is its central core, emphasis added. The social system in which the personality is bred, matured, and embedded is characterized by an immense inequality of power relationships, especially in its early phases, and the relatively systematic and organized sanctions it imposes on the individual eventually leads to the learning of a complementary pattern of responses by the individual, which is also organized and generalized. In sum, the predominant social system and those who define and control it substantially help to shape the organized personalities of its individual members. This means that much of the contents, abilities, tendencies, interests, and tastes which uniquely characterize its members are derived from it and are integrated into their unique personalities. However, the uniqueness of their personalities is like the uniqueness of all individual waves which make up the ocean, which paradoxically, uniquely shaped, they are fundamentally made pretty much of the same stuff. The individual is essentially an individual social being. Hence, in spite of its vaunted uniqueness, personality is sociable. That is, it is to an important degree organized by the system of social relations in which it is embedded and with which it reciprocally interacts. Since personality as an organization is a base or source of social power, since its unique organization of contents, abilities, tendencies, interests, and tastes is to a measurably important degree determined by the predominant social system of which it is a subunit or member, the social power it generates and expresses is also largely determined by the social system of which it is an integral part. Consequently, the personalities which constitute a particular social system in spite of their uniqueness share numerous common orientations promoted by that system and are thereby instruments of that system and are instrumental to its survival and maintenance. They, in effect, are the power instruments of its social power, of its ability to socially engineer its continued existence and functionality. Thus, personality inherently serves both the individual and society. It is most useful to the predominant social system when it conforms to the needs of the system while expressing its conformity in uniquely personal ways. In the context of white-black social power relations, we may easily infer from the foregoing discussions that the social powerlessness of blacks relative to whites devolves in part from the ability of the predominant white-controlled social system to impose certain patterns and limitations on the organized ability and behavioral tendencies which characterize the multitude of African American personalities. This imposition creates black personalities in spite of their individual uniqueness, whose character, tendencies, and behavior outcomes are compatible with maintaining the white-controlled system which dominates them. Consequently, those personalities become the variety of power against their own best interests. In a word, black personalities created and formed by a white-controlled social system are inherently self-defeating. The energy yielded by the conglomerate of black personality empowers the dominant white-controlled social system as it disempowers the potential of a black-controlled social system, or at least a social system equally controlled by blacks and whites. However, black empowerment and black power, whether epitomized by a relatively autonomous black-controlled social system or by a social system equally controlled by blacks and whites, require that the personalities of blacks be organized by a black-controlled social system, compatible black-controlled social system, so that their contents, abilities, tendencies, interests, and tastes are compatible with the self-preserving, liberated interests of that system and the individual interests of its members. I'm going to read that again. However, black empowerment and black power, whether epitomized by a relatively autonomous black-controlled social system or by a social system equally controlled by blacks and whites, requires that the personalities of blacks be organized by a black-controlled social system so that their contents, abilities, tendencies, and taste and interest are compatible with the self-preserving, liberated interests of that system and the individual interests of its members. I want to continue, but this next part, I don't want to say it gets deep, but it's long because I don't think you can get deeper than what he's already going. But it definitely gets long. And what I think I'm going to do is break this down into like 3 parts right quick. So I'm going to end here. But I hope your today is great. I hope your tomorrow is greater. I'm going to try to find out how to pronounce unanimity. I know it's basically, the coming together or unity. It's another word for unity. But I'm going to go and look and see how to find that. And I think I'll put that up as a word to grow on. But I do appreciate you coming through. Again, no matter when you watch this, let me know what city you tuned in from, whatever you learned thus far from Blueprint for Black Power. What other books would you like for me to read? What other topics are there out there that aren't being discussed that you would like to see being discussed? Again, I hope your today is great. May your tomorrow be greater. Hotep family, race first at all times, and at all times, race first.